I swear I wasn't planted in the audience. My name is Ellen Mallow. I'm a parent of a preschooler.
Yep.
And I live in the school district. I live less than a mile away from 2 other school districts.
Okay.
If you look at test scores by any reasonable interpretation, the elementary school in my town is mediocre. And it's been mediocre for years. You go 3/4 of a mile down the road, and they're just blowing everybody out of the water. They're extremely successful. And by the same measure, if you go back by test scores, they've always been extremely successful. My husband and I sat down to get a superintendent's agreement to just discuss options. And we were told by our superintendent that as parents, of course we have school choice. We can choose to homeschool, or we can send our daughter to private school. Additionally, the principal that we were talking with of the school that our daughter will go to said that, and I quote, "You chose to live in an economically repressed area," indicating, of course, that I must accept a mediocre school because I don't have a choice. To this gentleman's point, what are we doing to foster choice among the schools we already have? I can go 3/4 of a mile away. I'm not even asking for the bus to come pick her up. I will drive her there.
Yeah.
And with gas prices, that's not a convenience to me. That's an inconvenience. And also, the other part of that question is, why do I need to ask a superintendent for permission to send her to a better school when that very person, it's in that person's financial best interest to say no?
Okay. I will tell you that one of the pieces of the legislation that we're looking at is not just the choice piece, because we're going to come to that, but the tuitioning model that we use. Because we have a system now, well, let me back up. First of all, in terms of choice in the existing system, I think that was one of the things that was one of the hoped-for outcomes of the reorganization effort, which was that you would build some regional school systems, and you'd have choice within that region. Superintendent Shuttleworth, down in Bath, built that within the RSU that he built. RSU 1, the very first one. You've got choice among the elementary schools down there, so those parents can move around. You know, there was a time where around the Waterville-Winslow area, they were contemplating building an RSU, a regional school district there with 4 high schools in it. And even the high schools were talking about, you know, we're going to be able to specialize, we're going to do some things, we'll swap kids around, we'll build the foreign language program here, we'll have the GT program over there, and instead of each trying to replicate the same thing, we can build a really solid program in this school that will serve all the kids in this entire huge district. And really figure out a way to provide options to parents. I don't think that we've managed to pull that off because the regionalization piece is sort of just never got off the ground. I mean, it hasn't even happened in a lot of places, including right here. So where we're going is the governor is a school choice supporter. He thinks you should have choice. I think you should have choice. What we need to do is fine-tune the system that dictates how the money goes with the kid, not just the authority of who gets to decide, but where the money goes and how the money goes. Right now what we have is kids who live in school choice communities. So for instance, I grew up in Penobscot. Penobscot didn't have a high school. So I had school choice, high school choice. So I could go to, I could have gone to Bucksport, I could have gone to GSA, I could have gone to Ellsworth, John Baxter, wherever, Dirigo. And we have communities like that in Maine all over the place where those kids have choice. And it seems to work fine, by the way. One of the issues, though, is that the tuitioning model that we have, the tuitioning system, the tuition amount, the amount that follows the child, is set at a state average rate. So we sort of look at what is the average cost of a high school education in Maine, more or less, and we plunk that number on. And that's the amount that follows the kid. What that has the effect of doing is, if you go to Bangor, for instance, the Bangor area, they've got a lot of towns outside Bangor that have school choice. John Baptist, which is the academy, private academy in Bangor, which accepts tuition students, does not have a special ed program, and so doesn't accept students who have special ed needs because they don't provide that service. The effect of that, though, on the districts around is that John Baptist is sort of pulling a certain population of kids out of these surrounding towns And the kids that have special ed needs end up sort of overpopulating the towns that operate essentially the public high schools, because they have to operate those programs. So what we want to do is build a dynamic tuitioning system where the amount of money that goes with the child is connected to the cost of providing that child's education. So instead of John Baptist getting $8,000 per kid, let's say, because that's the state average rate, the children they're getting don't need any special services, they don't need English language, they're not English language learners, they don't have special education costs, all those kind of things. They're going to get like $6,000 a kid, or $5,500, or whatever that amount is that we determine as sort of the per pupil rate. The child that does have the special education needs and has additional costs as a consequence, or is an English language learner, or has a low socioeconomic status, so we have adjustments in the funding formula for that as well, that money would go up. So instead of John Baptist getting $8,000 and Brewer High School getting $8,000, John Baptist would get $6,000 and Brewer would get $20,000 or $25,000, because the kid that they are getting costs more for them to provide an education to. So we think that if we build a dynamic sort of tuitioning model, we will align the incentives with what we want, which is, because the issue with school choice is, what do you do with the kids who are left behind? What do you do with the kids that the schools don't want? Where are they supposed to go? So the thinking is, if you can align how the money works, that you can incentivize schools to build programs to address the needs of those kids that we typically think of as being left behind. So that's a very long answer to your question, which is, in the next legislative session, which will be in January, we will be coming forward with legislation from the governor that lays out a new school choice system that has a dynamic tuition modeling system that goes with it. And it'll go before the legislature, and we'll see what happens.